Howdy friends, welcome back. We have made it past another hump day. It is now time for today in, I'll be honest, probably 15. Since I'm not going to be here tomorrow, and I really want you guys to be able to get a start on your drafting processes for your personal narratives, I am going to go through all of the notes that we started today and we'll finish tomorrow with your substitute in one day. That way you've got a total glimpse of what it's going to take for you to create a quality piece of writing. So we've already been through writer's dispositions, where we explored all of the qualities that a writer needs to embody: courage, understanding, perseverance, reflection, expertise, collaboration. They need to have the courage to share. They need to be willing to try to understand things better. They need to persevere when the going gets tough. They need to reflect, step back, and look at themselves and be willing to change. They need to be willing to share their expertise with others, and they need to be willing to work with others in order to make sure that their piece of writing is the best it possibly can be. We already took a look at how the writer's process is going to help us create this product. We go in, we pre-write, we draft, we peer review, we revise, we edit, we click print and publish. We share our writing with the world. We share it, our ideas, the writing with the world. But wait a minute, Mr. Kaz, what? How do I know if that writing is any good? How do I share it with the world if I'm not entirely sure that it's very good? We talked about what makes a piece of writing good yesterday. We got into more specifics today. When you pick up anything, whether it's a novel, or a short story, or a magazine, or a newspaper article, when you pick it up, you have an expectation about that piece of writing. And it's because you say, well, hey, a writer published this, somebody else decided that or a writer wrote this, a publisher decided they were going to publish this has got to be pretty good. Well, yeah, it ought to be. But what characteristics are in that piece of writing? What does that have that makes it a quality piece of writing? Enter 6+1 traits of quality writing. These 6 traits of quality writing. The +1, presentation, making sure it looks good. But these 6 traits relate to the actual writing itself. If your writing shows thorough understanding of ideas and content, it's organized, it has a specific voice, the words are chosen accurately and appropriately to reflect your purpose. The sentences are fluent and they flow. The conventions are there. All of the rules that you need to follow in order to be taken seriously are there. Well, these 6 things are what go into a quality piece of writing. First and foremost, your writing needs to be full. It needs to be rich. What we said in class is it needs to be meaty. If I've just run a marathon and I've got 2 choices, I've got soup broth or a big steak dinner, which is going to satisfy me more? If I'm hungry for something, the big steak dinner. I'm not taking anything away from the soup broth, sometimes it's alright. But when I want something I can sink my teeth into as a reader, it darn well better have some substance, some ideas and content, rich, to share with me. Otherwise, guess what? I'm not really going to waste my time with it. If you don't have anything to say, nobody's going to bother reading it. If you have nothing that you're going to share, why share it in the first place? Why even bother taking the time to do the exercise? You have important things you need to share. Make sure that they're reflected in your writing. Next, organization. Your ideas have to flow. If I'm going from paragraph to paragraph, or from idea to idea, and I have to keep stopping as a reader, guess what? I'm not going to bother. News for you. That hurts. Walking into a wall over and over again hurts. I'm not going to do it. So your reader's going to do the same thing. Because mentally, it hurts to read somebody who isn't organized. You've all had a friend who tried to tell a story who just absolutely couldn't, because they couldn't organize their thoughts. They're over here, they're over there, they're in this part of the story, but then they have to go back and explain this part of the story, then they got to tell you about something that happened days ago, then they get back to the story, and then they move somewhere else, and they move to another location, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Step aside, take 5 minutes, organize your thoughts, and come back to me, because I ain't got 2 years to stand here to listen to you tell a story. Same deal. If your ideas and content are all there, but they're completely all over the place, again, people are going to stop reading. And we don't want them to stop reading. You have a connection to make. Make it. Voice and word choice. I'm going to group those two together because we were talking and we said that oftentimes when we look at a person, their voice and the words they choose to use tend to say a lot about their personality. And that's what voice and word choice are about. And by the way, isn't somebody's personality what we connect to as people? Well, then doesn't it make sense that their voice and their word choice are what we connect to in a piece of writing? It says a lot about us, our voice and our word choice. Let's say I'm the type of guy who goes, "Whoa, gnarly, bro, those were some sick waves, bro. I got thrashed out there." My voice and my word choice say something about my personality, who I am. Now, that might be the type of person you can connect to. It might not be. But there is a strong personality at work given the words that I chose and the voice that comes out of me as my genuine voice. That's something to think about because we want people who are genuine in our day-to-day lives. So it makes sense that we want people who are genuine when they're sharing who they are with us through their writing. Last but not least, and it's the two that most people don't really want to talk about. Sentence fluency. We don't just need to think about flow when we're talking about organization. We need to think about flow when we're talking sentence to sentence. If we keep starting the same sentence with, "I went to the store, then I went to the bank, then I went to, and then I went to, and one time I went to, and then I went to," if all the sentences are exactly the same, it's like running into a brick wall over and over again. What do? We stop. Your sentences should have a nice, easy flow, one into the next, and they should work with one another so that the audience almost feels like, the reader almost feels like, they get to the end and they're like, "It's over already? I didn't even feel like I was reading." That's accomplished through sentence fluency, really choosing your sentences carefully and paying attention to how they flow with one another. Last but not least, conventions. Conventions are something you don't often like to open up and look at, but I promise you they're an obstacle to certain people, to most people. See now, if I pick something up that's been published, I have an expectation that the grammar has been checked, the spelling has been checked, the usage has been checked, the punctuation has been checked. Because I don't know if you're like me, when you pick up a newspaper and you see that there are spelling errors, or there's grammar errors, or they've used Y-O-U-R instead of Y-O-U''R-E, or I-T-S instead of I-T''S, depending on the usage, I put it down and I say, you know what, if they couldn't be bothered to take the time to look this over, I'm not going to be bothered to take the time to look it over. It can be a big obstacle to somebody if those things aren't in check. You don't want the fact that you don't like grammar, or you don't like spelling, you don't like punctuation, you go, "Oh, I don't want to." You can't let that stand in the way of you, the writer. And I'm talking to everybody, because you are all writers. You're a writer, I'm a writer, we're all writers. We have something to share. We don't want to let a little thing like checking our grammar and punctuation and spelling and usage get in the way of our message going to whomever needs to read it. So you say, "Okay, Mr. Kaz, this is what a good piece of writing has. Ideas and content, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, conventions, all intact, all in one perfect package." Well, I can't do that. I'm not a writer. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. No, they get like weeks or months or years to write books and stuff, and I don't have that time. You gave me this assignment for next week. Well, they're all going through the same process that you are. You're writing a shorter piece. You can go through all the steps in the writer's process just like they do and make sure that you've got something that follows all of this. And I'll show you how. See, that writer's process we were talking about, well, in pre-writing, we know that brainstorming and organizing are part of the pre-writing process. So we get all of our ideas and content down on a sheet of paper and then we organize it into how we want to say it during pre-writing? Oh boy! We have just taken care of, in one step of the writer's process, we have just set ourselves up for success for ideas and content and organization. Now, of course, our ideas and content and organization are going to come through when we draft as well. But mostly, in that first 15 to 20 minute chunk, when we sit down to write, of pre-writing, we've already covered 2 bases. Okay, voice and word choice, Mr. Cass. What do you have for that? Well, that's you. Just make sure when you're writing, especially in a personal narrative about you, that you and your personality, which is what we said voice and word choice were, come through. Well, you do that during the drafting phase. You do that during the drafting phase. That's when you flesh out your ideas. All of this stuff that you've got written down in an outline or whatever, now it becomes real, living, breathing words. Voice, word choice. Now, peer review comes in. Peer review, I would say, is the first glimpse our audience gets. Now, shouldn't you be thinking about all of these things at every step in the writer's process? Of course. But specifically, these stages in the writer's process help you out. But when a peer reviewer is coming in, they are looking at all of it. The total package. So it's helpful to have a peer reviewer who knows what these 6 things are that they're looking for. See, most people don't actually know what they're looking for in a good piece of writing. They just know what good writing looks like. Well, this is exactly what's in good writing. You're going to pick up a rubric tomorrow during class, and I'll attach it to my podcast tomorrow, but you'll pick up a rubric in class that lays out what all of these things look like in your writing and how to get 100. It's helpful to have somebody who knows what all of these things are when you peer review, but it's not necessary. But they will give you feedback on all of this. Let's say I know the person, because we tend to like to be peer reviewed by people we know. I read it and I say, man, this isn't you. This isn't you writing. You didn't really share yourself. I really need to see more of that. You can go back and during the revising process, because we all know that revising really means rewriting, we can reimagine our ideas and content and how they're organized and the voice and word choice that comes through in that step of the process. But they're also probably going to be able to find stuff that you wouldn't have found because you already know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. You're in your own head. Your readers are not going to be. We can't rub the book and magically the author pops out and says, oh, here's what I was talking about. That doesn't happen. So they're also going to be able to keep a close eye out on sentence fluency and conventions. Sometimes we get so in our head that we don't notice the bumps in the road that come because of sentence fluency and conventions. We don't really even take many looks at that until what part of the process? The editing process. At the very end, that's not what we're thinking about because we think that our writing hinges much more on the ideas and the voice and word choice than it does on the grammar and the sentences. And we're probably right about that. But we can never underestimate the power of having an audience member review what we've done and making sure that they understand it. Because remember, if your audience can't understand it, they can't connect to you, and that's the whole point. That's what we want. You are all writers, and you all have something important to share with the world, and it can't happen necessarily unless all of this is in place. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. I know it was a little longer today, and I've been having some issues with Podbean today, so you'll see that there's nothing really below this, but you can click on the download button and get the written transcription, which means just printout of all of the notes for today and tomorrow, and also the homework. All you have to do is click on that download button that you usually go to download the stuff that I handed out in class to you. It's all right there. I don't know why I couldn't get it to post on the actual site, but I was able to get it to attach. So use it there. Have a great day. Remember to be respectful to the substitute tomorrow, and get your work done. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys on Friday.